I'm gonna try to play CSGO while literally watching the game through my phone screen. I have no idea how well this is going to go, although most likely, in all likelihood, about as well as you would expect. But we're gonna see what happens here, because I did not want to leave this match abruptly just to talk about a thought that I have. Um, More particularly, a thought that's been on my mind for a while now, but I have been too lazy to bring up in the form of a YouTube video. Shit. See, I would have gotten that guy if not for this fucking phone screen, but whatever. I was talking with No Thank You the other day about how much I've changed because he's someone who's known me since 2018, and we've talked just about every day ever since then. And we've met up in real life. I lived at his house for a little bit, so he knows me pretty damn well. But he has some insights that I just wouldn't necessarily have or agree with, but they always add to my understanding of myself in a fairly broad fashion. I was going through my old videos recently from different eras of my life and trying to get an understanding of what I was like during different years or different seasons of different years, even depending on how much I changed in one particular year. And I was trying to get a sense for what factors were influencing me at those particular times, not just from what was in the videos themselves, but also from what I remembered about that time. Because I watch those videos and I don't just remember what's in the videos or what happened immediately prior to making them. I remember the things I was saying to people at the time. I remember most of the surrounding circumstances, quite a bit. Um, there's a guy here. Shit. Okay. Or I thought there was. Oh, fuck, he's over there. Okay. Well, yeah. It's impossible for me to play a game and talk at the same time, but this is a comforting footage experience, so we're gonna roll with it, okay? Um, yeah, either way, the worst gun. Um, Either way, I recall all of this stuff when I watch these videos, and so I'm able to get a pretty distinct picture of what I am like at certain times. And the reason why I was looking into it, in these last couple days in particular, was because I was trying to either validate or invalidate this notion that I've consistently circled where where I have somehow fallen off. That this notion that I've fallen off, I feel like I've thought so many different things about this at different times. But like now, like most consistently, I feel like my reasoning skills have generally improved. My ability to articulate myself has generally improved, although it seems to be a lot slower now. Like, I am better at doing it, but I am not as fast at doing it as I once was. Um, so it takes me more time. And the amount of time it takes me can sometimes be a hindrance because I am generally impatient. And so, due to my impatience, um, I will not do things that I would have done in the past with the same amount of speed. And this also goes for memory, because something interesting he told me was it's not so much that my memory has quote unquote gotten worse, which is the perception that I have, but more so, as he put it, I seem to not engage in the same level of rote memorization for particular facts. I just seem uninterested in doing that. And that was really interesting to me that he described me in that way, because I've literally never engaged in rote memorization for anything aside from when I was doing Anki for Japanese and also German, which is kind of a different thing. And I've also never engaged in any like specialized type of repetition for facts uh, regarding stuff I was reading about or thinking about at that time. Um, I would definitely say it seemed like I had kind of an ideological mission back then, because I would read all these studies and articles and listen to these talks and stuff about the same like couple topics, and then I would be able to just rattle off basically everything I learned from consuming those things in almost exactly the same way as the people who I listened to would say it. And this was actually an insecurity I had about myself, because I thought, like, you know, if I'm not creatively applying the knowledge that I've gained, is it really knowledge? And so I thought, like, I may have this great memory and I may be able to sound smart a lot of the time, but that's just because I'm repeating things that other smarter people have said. If I were really that smart, I would be able to hear this stuff and then creatively apply it to new situations and actually add to what I learned. Wait, am I the last one alive? No, I'm not. See, I had to duck over my camera in order to actually look at the screen. I thought I was just going to start wandering in bee tunnels again because I was the last one alive, and no, I actually was not. But anyhow, um, I see, I'm so linearly minded. If I get off topic for like even a moment, I start to forget when I'm playing a game. Now, if I'm solely focused on talking, I can generally keep on track, but I digress. What the fuck was I talking about? Um, oh, yeah. So, being able to creatively apply that knowledge in new situations, because you understand all of the steps that would lead to you getting to a certain conclusion. Um, this is like, this is vital for intelligence, right? Oh, well, that was coming. Um, and so I was really insecure about this perceived idea I had about myself as someone who wasn't able to do that. Now, I actually was able to do that, and I would try to do that. And the more I practiced, of course, the more I got better. But part of the problem was I often lacked the motivation to do that. Like, unless it were for, these debates that I had a lot of emotional investment in, just as an example, um, I generally wouldn't do that. Or for videos, if it were for videos, I would do that because I wanted my videos to be original. Um, Although more often than not back then, my videos would just be about whatever random thought I was having, regardless of anything else. Um, so that was kind of like the area I was occupying. the brain area. And, like, as time went on, I just stopped caring about those topics anywhere near as much. And I especially stopped caring about, like, feeling vindicated or correct about them. You know, the more I became open to different perspectives or being wrong about my own, I sort of went through this, like, long period of, like, questioning things and like, basically just straight up not believing anything. And now I feel like I believe a number of things, and I can debate about them up and down the line, and I'm I'm still gonna think the same things. I might like tune up my thought process based on specific counter arguments that are levied against me, but in general, and now I feel like I'm kind of set in a number of things, and of course that stands in contrast to where I was a little while ago, which was just like so open that I could flip flop on some pretty big stuff, and now I'm not really there anymore. Um, all of this is to say, like, when you don't feel like there's an emotional precedent that's set to like prove your side, prove your case, when you don't feel like it's really important to win arguments and to feel vindicated and to be right, and also if you already feel like you're right, like regardless, it's just not really satisfying to engage in a lot of the mental masturbation that comes with um, that comes with like really like trying your damnedest to apply logic and also to um, effectively remember the things that you're learning. For example, like I was getting into conversations about this kind of stuff often, a lot. And I would do rants, these like long-winded rants about my thoughts on these sorts of, complicated matters, fairly often. And of course, that's going to have a reinforcing effect because if you go to do that right after you learn something and you do it again and again and again, it's going to be lodged in your long-term memory. If I'm not doing that anymore, you know, um, it just stands to reason that anything that I learn is not going to be retained in the same way. Additionally, though, and this is where I would push back on his point in a more specific way, I do feel like my like internal experience, my cognitive experience with the world has changed. I mean, that's kind of a broad thing to say. Like, what do I mean by that in this context? I feel like my memory and like my ability to process memories, form new ones, and so on has definitely changed. As I mentioned earlier, I'm slower than I used to be, which I think means that my processing power is not as strong as it once was. And as a result of that, um, I don't remember things as acutely as I once did. Um, because a lot of those rants that I went on, they, like, I would be able to recite what I learned in, like, exact detail later in the day after learning it or immediately after. And I could go, like, several days, like, after learning it and then talk about this stuff to someone. And then, I would just remember it, like, almost exactly as I learned it. And it it was just sitting there. Like, I wouldn't have to do anything to retain the memories. I definitely didn't put effort into doing so. It was just sitting in there. Like I would exist and then remember everything. Um, so no, there wasn't very much real effort involved maybe there was some emotional weight. No, actually, there was a lot of emotional weight that I put on these things, and I think that caused me to have a greater motivation to retain the information, which that probably accounted for something. But in general, like, no, I did not put an effort into this stuff. And so I think it's interesting that he described it as rote memorization because I just never, yeah, I just never did that. Um, and it's interesting that people would have perceived me that way because it's, you know, attributing a behavior to me that I simply was not engaging in, which is interesting. Oh, fuck. I'm getting destroyed in this round the longer I play through this fucking camera screen. Oh my god. But anyhow, um, so I do think that's changed. Now I think my ability to just store information to infinity, yeah, that's not quite there anymore. But I also think like, I mean, that's not there for a lot of people. By the time you're in your early 20s, if that was like a really astute ability that you had when you're a little bit younger, I don't think it's that abnormal for it to just drop off. Um, and also, I don't even think it's like a problem that it's dropped off. I mean, it makes things slightly inconvenient. Like, I have to put in significantly more effort if there is stuff that I want to recall really quickly and, like, have on hand right away, rehearsed. Um, it, it does require a little bit more effort from me now. But when you lack the motivation, when you lack the concrete reasons to do that, uh, is the loss like actually substantially meaningful? Well, no. No, it's not meaningful at all. Um, so, I don't know. I mean, the way I've experienced the world has changed, but is that really a bad thing when it doesn't directly bump up against, like, my goals, like any goals I have? Um, yeah, probably not.